In this video, we are going to get started on wood construction in Revit. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to introduce you on how to make a wood truss as a family. That's something we have not learned in the previous Revit courses. So I am going to show you how to do a simplistic truss in Revit. And then we will use that truss in our construction that we're going to continue in Revit for some simple wood wall framing and then some simple roof framing. So let's get started. Before we get started creating our family, let's go into Revit and go to a new file, and let's just go to the architectural template and say okay. And if we go to structure, you'll see we have a category for trusses. So if you click on truss, it's going to take you to where we need to load in a family. So if we go to structural trusses and we look down through here, you'll see we have lots of different choices. But one choice we don't have in here is a shed type roof system with a roof truss that is a shed. These are also known as mono trusses. So that's what we're going to create, is a shed roof truss. So let's get started with that. I'm going to close this project and I'm going to go to File, I'm going to go to New, and I'm going to go to Family. And the first thing that I need to do is I need to decide where I want this to be housed. If we scroll down into the structural elements, you'll see we have structural trusses. So that's the one we want to start with. This will give us a truss template to start with. This is what the truss family looks like when you first start it. First thing I want to do is check the units, and it looks like it's okay. It's in feet, which is what I want. In this template, it's set for 80 feet. We're going to change that down to 40 feet. Because the building we're going to do is not going to be very big. So now we are going to start creating the elements. We're going to go under the Create tab. If you look here in the middle or towards this end, you have the top chord, the web, and the bottom chord. If you're not familiar with a truss, if we were to make this a shed truss, the top chord would be the angled one, the bottom chord would be the bottom piece, and then the web would be the diagonal and vertical pieces in between there. Let's start with the top chord, and we're going to make our slope from here to here. And we need to hit escape a couple of times to get out of that. Now I'm going to create the bottom chord. I'm going to go from here to here, and I want to go ahead and lock this in place. The other thing we would want to do is we want to lock the rest of this into place. So again, if I go to my line tool and I pick this line and I tab until I get to that point and lock that and make sure everything is locked into place. So now we are ready to create our web. And so what I want to do is I just want to create a couple of reference planes. So if I select this, this is my reference plane. Once I select the reference plane line, I can type in CS for create similar, and then I can just add a couple of more reference planes in here. And then I'm going to take these two and I'm going to mirror them around this axis so I have equal spacing on each side. I want to make these all equal, so if I go to my aligned tool, I can pick each one of these and if I place that up here and I click on equal, that way now they are all equally spaced. So now I'm ready to create my webs. So if I go here to web and I place a line here, I want to make sure again that I lock it, and I'm going to place one at each one of these vertical lines and lock it, place one at each vertical line and lock it, and continue. Until I have them all placed and locked. Then I need to do the diagonal ones. So I'm going to go from here to here, and it comes in locked automatically because the others are locked into place. And I will continue to this point. I don't need to do one in that lower corner. Now that I have this created as my base, I'm going to save this family. So I'm going to do save as, and you will want to save it into your project folder. And for myself, I'm just going to save it where my drawings are for this class. And I'm going to call it Shed Truss. And hit save. And now we're going to test it out. So let's go back up here and go to new and do project. And let's pick architectural template and say okay. And now I'm going to go back to my truss. And I want to do load into project. And this would be my project 2 since I have not named it yet. So we are going to place it in here, and again we made it 40 feet, so I'm going to stick with that. And if we go into our 3D view, you see we have a truss, and it's kind of ugly, so we've got to do some repair to it to make it look proper. So one of the very first things we want to change in our truss is the material that it's made out of. Right now it's made out of steel, and we want ours to be made out of wood. So to figure out the wood size members, you typically have to go to your local truss company or to an engineer, or you have to look at a span chart. So what we're doing is a mono truss. One of the first things we have to do before we can select our truss member sizes is we have to calculate the slope of our truss. We had a 10-foot rise and a 40-foot run. This goes back to math class. If we take 40 times 10, that should equal 12 times whatever this number is that we don't know. So if we take 10 times 12 equals 40 times y, that gives us 120 equals 40y, and then we divide 120 by 40, which gives us a 312 slope. So our truss is a 312 slope. There are some other things up here at the top of the chart that we have to take into consideration. It has to do with the live load and the roof type. We're going to kind of just overlook that for right now. And we're going to come down here to the mono truss, and we saw that we have a 312 roof pitch. So according to this, we could actually go up to 30 feet and have 2x4 members on the top and the bottom. Ours is over that. So we're over the 33, so we're up to the 45, so we really need to have 2x6 members on our trusses for all of the parts. So that's what we are going to use. So I'm ready to go in and change these members, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my Insert tab, and I'm going to go to Load Family. I want to go to Structural Framing, and I want to go to Wood, and you'll see I have some different types of wood in here. What I want to use is this one right here that says Dimension Lumber. This is going to be like my 2x4s, my 2x6s, etc. So if I pick on that and say open, it's going to give me those choices. Now I said my members need to be 2x6. So I'm going to pick on the 2x6 and I'm going to say okay. And now if I select my truss and make sure it has my truss here and I go into Edit Type, you'll see I have a structural framing type. If I click on that, now my 2x6 is actually in there. I've got to do that for the vertical webs. So again, I'm going to pick here and pick my 2x6. I've got to do that for the diagonal webs, and I'm going to go here and pick 2x6. I've got to do that for my bottom chord. I'm going to pick 2x6. And I should have everything selected that I need to select. I'm going to say apply, and I'm going to say okay. So now all of my members changed from steel to the wood, but they look kind of like it's not quite right because we're not joining properly in any of these locations. So the next thing we do is we have to clean up this truss. So one of the first things I want to do is I want to go to one of my elevations and kind of get everything put where it's supposed to be. Right now we're just seeing individual lines. So I want to come down here to my detail level and set that to fine. And now I can kind of really see what it looks like. So I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to start with this. If I take my cursor and put it over my diagonal piece and I hit tab, I can select it. And the first thing I want to do is unpin it. And then you see I can take it and stretch it out. And I want to stretch it to where it touches over both pieces. Again, I'll do the same thing for this one. I'll unpin it and I will stretch it down to where it aligns with that one. And again, select this one and stretch it up to where it aligns. And I will continue to do that to all of my pieces to where they overlap each other. I'm going to stop my video at this point and do that so you don't have to watch me, but you can do that on your drawing. So now that we have everything kind of stretched out and put in the place that we want it to be, the next thing we got to do is clean these up also. If we go to our Modify tab, you see you have something here called Cope. So the thing you want to do is first you want to pick the one that you want to cope to the other object. So if I pick on Cope and I pick this one and then I pick this one, you see it cleans it up. On this one I want to pick this one and then this one, and I want to pick this one with this one, and then I want to pick this one with this one, and that cleans that all up. So I need to go around and do that at every intersection. So I'm going to do that first. I'm going to again stop my video and do that throughout my whole truss. Now that I've completed that, it does look a little bit better, but you see we have some pretty wide gaps here where it coped. So we really don't want that, especially if we are doing a presentation type drawing. So what I can do, again, by holding down my tab key and picking on the member, you'll see I have a coping distance here. I can set that to 0 and hit apply, and that cleans that up. So I'm going to go through again, and anything that I coped I can do that with. So if I select that member and I come down here to my coping distance and make that 0 and hit apply, you'll see it cleans it up nicely for me. So I'm going to go through and do that on the remainder of my truss. I'm going to stop my video again and get that completed. So now my truss looks pretty nice if I look at it 3-dimensionally, and if I turn my realistic on, you'll see it made a nice truss. At this point, that is what we're going to do for the trusses. It doesn't matter if you create your own truss family or you take one out of the library, you still have to cope it and clean it up. That's one disadvantage, and it takes a little bit. But once you get one done, then you don't have to do anything to the rest of them as long as they're all the same trusses. Now you have created your own family, which is something we haven't done in the other courses. Be sure to save this file as your wood drawing, as we are going to continue with this same file in the next part of the project. In the next video, we're going to start putting our small building together. We'll start with the foundation and footings, and then we'll come in and put in the wall framing and the roof framing.